either you go ahead and get the physical yourself and pay out of pocket, or you have the company that you're working with. You have companies that will actually pay to get the DOT physical for you. They'll not only pay for your time to get the physical, but then also they will pay you. They'll get the DOT physical for you. So instead of you paying out of pocket for it, the company is going to pay for that for you and the time that it took for you to get the DOT physical itself. So it's a huge blessing. I don't have to worry about paying out of pocket for a DOT physical when the company is going to pay for it already. Hey, BET Trainer here. Listen, I'm actually on my way to the medical DOT medical clinic / facility so that I can go ahead and get my DOT physical and random drug testing. So I literally just came from the company that I'm working with, and earlier they called and said that I've been pulled to do a random drug testing. So basically, random drug testing just means that it's a random pool where they'll select drivers that have their commercial driver's license and they are working with the company. They're required by DOT, Department of Transportation. They have to make sure that the drivers are compliant. So in order to make sure everyone's compliant, they do a random pool to see which driver is next to take the random drug testing. So that's required. The company that is regulated by DOT and the company that's regulated by the FMCSA are required to have drivers be in that pool of the random drug testing. So they called me and they said I was in that pool meaning that I was on the list for me to get my random drug testing, right? And that drug testing consists of either alcohol, drugs, and or both, depending on whether the type of random drug testing it is or the random testing. But basically, I had to go up and get the paper forms and the envelope. So inside the envelope, it has my name, information, obviously my commercial driver's license information, and the address to where the location is. And it's a specific clinic or facility that I have to go to. Usually it's closest to the job or the terminal. And sometimes, depending on which medical clinic it is or facility, they might have different locations in different areas. So depending on how it's set up with you and the company that you're working with and or working for. But for me, I'm going to the specific medical clinic facility, and guess what? The company is paying two things. The company is paying for my time. They paying for the time that I get the DOT physical and back. So depending on the company, however long it might take an hour, 2 hours, whatever the case is, the company is paying me the hours that it took me to get my DOT physical, because that's considered on the job. It's considered on duty, not driving. Even though I'm driving my personal vehicle, it's considered on duty, not driving, as it relates to driving a commercial motor vehicle, because I'm not driving a commercial motor vehicle, and it's considered on duty, not driving. So I'm getting compensated for the hours that I'm getting my physical. Also, random drug testing, but then also the company that I'm working with, they pay for the DOT physical. So depending on what state or area that you're in, or your circumstances or situation, you may have to get your DOT physical every year, every 6 months, but generally speaking, you get your DOT physical every 2 years. And either you go ahead and get the physical yourself and pay out of pocket, or you have the company that you're working with. You have companies that will actually pay to get the DOT physical for you. They'll not only pay for your time to get the physical, but then also they will pay you. They'll get the DOT physical for you. So instead of you paying out of pocket for it, the company is going to pay for that for you and the time that it took for you to get the DOT physical itself. So it's a huge blessing. I don't have to worry about paying out of pocket for a DOT physical when the company is going to pay for it already. Now, for me specifically, I have to renew my DOT physical every year because, for example, the area that I'm in, if I have a school bus endorsement, it's required for me to get a DOT physical every year. Now, if I didn't have a school bus endorsement and I just had the passenger endorsement, then I will only need to do it every 2 years. But for me, it's every year. So the fact that as long as I'm working with this company, and I have a few companies that I work with that will pay for my DOT physical. And it's a blessing. So I can pick and choose, or if times of the essence and I have to, depending on what area I'm in, if I need to get the DOT physical myself, I can. But the company's going to get the DOT physical for me. And they're going to pay for the time spent me going up to get the physical and wait, because you have to go to the DOT physical, you have to check in, right, get the credentials, then you have to sit and wait depending on how long the line is, and then you got to go through that process. So for me, I said, you know what, let me go ahead and maximize my time. Instead of me just doing one time for random drug testing and then another time for the DOT physical, because my DOT physical expires about within the next month or so. For me, I like to get the physical in advance, at least between a month and 2 months before the expiration date. So that way, when that's finished, I can be able to go ahead and submit it to the MVA or your state licensing agency. For me, it's the MVA, Motor Vehicle Administration. That way I can send it to my licensing agency, and I can, like I said, be in compliant, and it'll be sent to the DOT physical, and I don't have to worry about it for me for the next 12 months. But generally speaking, it's between 12 to 14 months, generally speaking, that you have to do it. But I get the physical done at least 1 to 2 months before the expiration date, because you want to have that safety cushion just in case if you send it to your state licensing agency or Department of Motor Vehicles. When you send it to them, it might be a buffer or a window period. Sometimes you can either send it to in person, you can either send it online, or you can mail the copy of your DOT physical and your certificate to the MVA, depending on how it is, or your state licensing agency. It depends on the area, depends on if your state licensing agency, if they are able to have those options. Generally speaking, either in person, mail, online if it's available or it's an option. But for me, I'll do that. And also, the company will like to see the DOT physical. They want to receive the copy of the DOT physical itself. They want to receive the copy of the random drug testing results. And most likely it'll be alcohol and drug testing, since it's a random testing. As long as you are not having any alcohol or any drugs in your system, that's random, right? For me, I'm fine with that in terms of taking the random drug testing, and it's just a simple process. Once that is completed, since I'm doing both random and the DOT physical, it might take a little bit longer. So it might take, instead of it taking probably 30 minutes or an hour, it might take 2 hours, depending on, again, if it's a long line, if I'm waiting in line, depending on how many people are there, the professionals that are administering the DOT physical and the random alcohol and drug testing, depending on how that is set up. So, but overall, it's a simple process. I'm actually here now, so I'm gonna go ahead and go to this DOT physical and also the random alcohol drug testing. Most likely they'll do it at the same time. They'll do the random alcohol drug testing first, then the DOT physical and stuff like that. But obviously you need your driver's license, your current DOT physical card, or DOT card, what they call it, Department of Transportation card, or DOT certificate. That's another form of it. But I'm gonna go ahead and do that and keep you all posted on and keep you updated on what the next step of the process is and how that went. So yep, I'll keep you posted. So I just left a medical facility, and so I mean, pretty straightforward. It took me about 50 minutes to an hour because I was waiting in line. I had another person in front of me. First, I did a random drug testing first, and it wasn't an alcohol test, it was the random drug test itself, and that was pretty simple. And then after that, then it was the DOT physical itself. So the DOT physical was pretty simple. It was just like waiting. They took me to a separate room, and then they went ahead and just first they checked my blood pressure, then they went ahead and checked my heart, then they went ahead and they used either stethoscope where they check your heart, the back, the abdomen, and then after that, then they went ahead and tested my eyes and tested my ears, make sure that my eardrum, because I asked the person, they said that they would test me to make sure that the eardrum is intact. Then now, how they check the eyes, either they'll have light going into your eyes and they'll say look straight forward, or look or follow your finger. But they didn't do that here. Specifically, when they said check the eyes, they had a chart that says different numbers, and the more on that chart, on that list, the lower the numbers are, or the letters, the more smaller their letters are. So basically, they want to see if you can be able to read letters, and then it was colors on the chart as well. One was green, one was red. So basically, they wanted to make sure that I was able to physically be able to operate. I'm physically in shape to be able to operate a vehicle. So they also asked to stand up tall, nice and straight, stretch my toes, touch my toes. Then they went ahead and they said be on my heels, the heels of my feet, and then be on my tippy toes, so that way I can be imbalanced and stuff. And it was just, it's pretty explanatory. And honestly, before I did that, I had to fill out the medical examination report form. Now that part, they had it to where it's online in their system. So all I had to do is check boxes and type in if I answered yes to any one of the questions, explain. But then if it's no, you check no, and then at the end you sign it, stating that it's accurate and true. I did that. Obviously, they had to wait, put that in the system, had to sign, make sure I had to sign the medical examination report form, the random drug testing form, just making sure that what's written is accurate and that it is me doing, or me being the participant in the random drug testing and the DOT physical. It's like semi paperwork, just going through the motions. They'll tell you what you need to do. For example, when I did the random drug testing, they said pee or urinate in the cup halfway, do not flush the toilet. Simple as that. Otherwise, if you flush the toilet, then that's an automatic failure, because they don't want to risk anything about tampering the overall process. So that's as a safety measure, or that's their protocol why you don't flush the toilet after you urinate in the specimen or the urine cup or container. So I did that. I gave a specimen to the woman or the person that administered the test. It could be a male or female that would facilitate that process. And after that, then usually they'll have you sign your initials on the specimen, right? Either electronically and or physically write on the specimen. So, but overall the experience was just explanatory. It took me about an hour to do, overall hour, and now I'm finished. Well, except now that I have the documents, they print out my DOT certificate card or DOT card. Now, the next step is I have to send those copies to the state licensing agency. So for me, that's the Motor Vehicle Administration, or you got the Department of Motor Vehicles. I have to send that, and the key is I have to send that within 14 days of me having the physical. So with sending those documents within 14 days of completing that physical. Otherwise, your state licensing agency will not count that DOT physical as valid. Obviously, the random drug testing, it had to be right away within a certain period, either right away and or within a certain period of time. So your company or the company that you're working with will let you know if you're not able to do it that day. Maybe it's within 24 to 72 hours. Maybe it's within a week, but it is within a time frame to have the random drug testing done. The DOT physical, that needs to be done before your DOT physical expires. Now, it's not a certain time limit of how soon to get it done before that. But for me, I say get the DOT physical done within a month, early as 2 months, but estimate no later than a month before the DOT physical expires. So that's the safety method. That's to be on the caution side of things, so that way you won't have to be in that survival mode of pressure or stress to be like, oh, I gotta get my DOT physical, it expires tomorrow. You don't want to be in that state of mind frame. And plus, while you can, the sooner the better. So that's just one of the things. And also the copies of my DOT physical and random drug testing, always have a spare copy yourself. Either you can ask a medical facility to give you a copy, a separate copy for yourself, and then also the company or the employer, they will have a copy of it as well. And generally speaking, the companies that are required to keep these documents, like the up-to-date driver's license, your up-to-date DOT physical card, and the DOT physical form, those things, companies will need that and keep it updated in their system, so then that way they can still follow and comply with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration and DOT, Department of Transportation. So those just the paperwork administrative side of things that is outside of just driving, but however, it is important in order to be in compliance to be able to drive and earn the revenue and make the income and drive on the road and stuff like that. So the administrative part, it could come off as a little bit tedious and challenging a little bit, but overall, it's worth the time. It's required by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, so by their regulations, and the Department of Transportation, in order for you to stay compliant, for you to be able to drive and operate the commercial motor vehicle. Basically, it's just those are the steps required so that way you can be able to operate and drive the vehicle safely on the road. So that's the overall process of what I did. It took, as I said before, an hour for me to do it, and it took about an hour, but I got compensated for that. So the company, they went ahead and just marked down or estimated. So for example, they'll probably give you about 2 hours, right, as an example, to get the DOT physical and finish it. If it's more than that, obviously you'll call the company, let them know that it actually took this many hours for the DOT physical, and most likely they'll go ahead and update it and add those hours in, so then that way you can get compensated for the hours that you took to get the physical. And for me, it was the DOT physical and the random drug testing. So those played a role in it. I have the documents, I have a copy of it, so then I'll go ahead and submit that to the state licensing agency. For me, it's the MVA, the Motor Vehicle Administration. So for me, I can be able to do that online. Depending on the state or the area that you're in, you may have to submit or send those documents in person. And when I say documents, I'm talking about the DOT physical, and it's called the medical examination report form, sending that, and the actual medical examiner certificate. Now, depending on the area, they might only ask you to send the medical examiner certificate, or they might ask you for the medical examination report form and the medical examiner certificate. So either way, just to be on the safe side, for me, I just send all of it, because in that sense, in this context, it's better to send more than to send less, in a sense, because it's better to send more and then not needing all of it versus not sending enough and then having a need to actually send more of the documents. So that's just my concept and principle of that. So obviously it all depends on context and the overall necessity and importance of it. But that's just a simple process that every commercial motor vehicle operator and driver goes through. If you're working with a company that follows the DOT regulations and the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, or FMCSRs, then they're required to do that. They're required to keep update for you to be in compliance. They need to have an updated copy of your driver's license, the front and back of your driver's license. And when I say driver's license, I'm talking about your commercial driver's license. They need updated DOT physical, and as well as making sure that anything that has changed, for example, if you had a new commercial driver's license or you renewed it, then they need a copy of that as well. But those are just the things. And obviously they're required, the company's required to have you in a pool, like a random alcohol drug testing pool, a random testing. So then that way they can be able to send the information, they can be able to help, and pretty much they probably use a third-party system, most likely, to administer that, for them to make sure that random drivers are in that pool, so then they know which driver is going to be pulled to do the random testing. And then obviously go through that process. The company will compensate you for the time that you spent, and you just send those documents to the company once it's completed. So obviously there are extra steps and protocols if you fail the alcohol or drug testing, or the random drug testing or alcohol testing, and or if you refuse to take a random drug testing. And there are procedures and steps if you do not take the drug and or alcohol testing within a certain time frame. So that's a whole nother topic, whole nother protocol, whole nother steps to do it. And trust me, it's tedious in terms of it takes more of a time to get out of something versus getting in it, generally speaking. And it's by the overall process. So for me, like I said, never refused to take a test, never failed alcohol or drug testing. But from stories and testimonies that I've heard, people that have gone through that, they had to go through this whole nother system, this whole nother process that took them or delayed them months, right? Or instead of them doing the alcohol drug testing maybe every 2 years, they had to go and do a drug or alcohol test either every month or every couple months, more frequently and stuff like that. So the main thing is, as long as you take care of yourself, as long as you have that positive, healthy mindset of who you are, what needs to be done, being aware of your resources, being aware of these things, being aware that, and asking the company that you're working with, ask them, do you all provide or pay for the driver's DOT physical? Do you pay for the driver's random drug testing? Do you pay for the time that it will take for me to get the physical or to get the random testing? And of course, generally speaking, if you was doing a pre-employment drug screening, that is for pre-employment, before you even hired with the company. Obviously, standard, the company will pay for that. And when I say pay for it, the cost for them to do the physical, but then also the company should pay or compensate you for the time that it took for you to get the physical. Now, when it comes to pre-employment drug screening, from my experience, and this is based on my experience, if it's a pre-employment drug screening and you are being hired, in the process of being hired, they'll pay for the pre-employment drug screening, but they won't pay you for the time that it took for you to actually get it, right? Now, hopefully that'll change. Maybe some areas they do that, where they do compensate the driver or the person getting the pre-employment drug screening. Maybe they do that in conjunction of, or in contingency of, meaning maybe they do pay the driver for the pre-employment drug screening only if they are hired by that company, right? But as far as my experience, they haven't. But as far as the random drug testing and the alcohol or drug testing and the DOT physical, generally speaking, there's always exceptions to the rule, but it doesn't negate the rule itself. Generally speaking, the company will pay for the actual test itself and the time that it was spent for you to actually get the test, whether it's the DOT physical or the random alcohol and or random drug testing. So, but that's the overall process, that's the overall steps. Keep it clear, simple, straight to the point. And if you have any questions, you just post it in the chat, leave some comments. Really think about this. So what are you all's thoughts about driving? What are thoughts about the overall process of the physical, about the DOT physical, about the random test, the random drug and alcohol testing? What are your all's thoughts? Have you been through it before? Just some of those things. And just keep in mind, stay focused, have the mindset of becoming the best version of yourself, and make sure you live your best life. But definitely take care. Keep you all posted, and talk to you soon. BET Trainer here. Listen, if you see value in this, put it in the comments. Share your thoughts in the comments, because I guarantee you, what you have, what your thoughts, your comments, I guarantee you someone else is feeling the same way too. And not only is helping, inspire, and encouraging you, but it's also helping and inspiring and encouraging people as well to get the valuable information needed so then they can take their dreams, your dreams, the overall everybody's dreams, goals, legacy, fruitions, businesses to the next level. And I have to commend you and thank you for being here thus far. And I strongly encourage you to pass this, share this forward. Let's have the discussion. Let's go ahead and change generations to generations. Let's build that legacy. Let's build that generational wealth to pass down to our families, generations moving forward. Let's be empowered by this. Let's have discussion. Let's talk about it. Let's implement and apply the principles needed so we all can get to a higher level place of quality of life. So, take care, drive safely, and again, remember, be the best version of yourself. Take care, and talk to you soon.